Everybody, welcome in. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. This is 17 and some change. I'm at you guys 17, here to bring you my 2 cents. So, today's episode is going to be all about Charlie Kirk. We're going to spend the entirety of the episode talking about Charlie. We're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about his politics. We're going to talk about the assassination. Um, and we're going to talk about a little bit about the potential aftermath and stuff like that. Um, I hope everybody here is doing okay, and there is so much complexity to this topic. I just want to start off. I just want to say first and foremost, rest in peace. And I was not in the camp of I was upset. I was upset when this happened. So I wasn't the hugest Charlie Kirk fan in the world. Um I had turned to him. Um there were opinions that he had that I liked listening to him on certain things. Other things I didn't necessarily agree with him. Um if you had asked me before the assassination, quite frankly, I would have um, recognized him as an eloquent speaker, somebody that I enjoyed listening to as a speaker. I would have recognized him as somebody who is involved in a culture war that not too many people are in are fighting um from a mainstream perspective and stuff like that. um but I also, and I would have, but I also recognize that I also would have told you that I don't necessarily like um the pressure that he puts on some of these kids that come to the mic and stuff like that, given it's their decision to do so. He got so good. I don't feel like it was a matter of like change my mind anymore. I don't know if he ever had the intention of his mind being changed. I think he was very firm in his convictions. He was very smart. He had done his research. He had talked about these issues, and spent years thinking about them. And I think he was out more to preach. He was more of an evangelical, not only for Christ but for his political views. And he was a very dominant in his debate styles, and he would he would win. Like, he would really put these people on the spot. And you can only be so hard on somebody for that type of stuff, though, in that type of environment. You know what I mean? He's not just gonna like sit there and get, you know, um, proven wrong or whatever like that. Um, but I'm glad that the conservative side stopped doing this whole like, oh, liberal gets owned and like leftist gets destroyed, like all these types of like clickbaits and stuff like that. I'm glad they stopped doing that. Um, and even though Charlie, you know, kind of pushed the pedal to the metal, um, in his debates or in his conversations with students, like he would get them on their back feet and then he would keep going. I didn't see any malice in it. I saw authenticity in him, um, in regards to like what he believed and his intention to not hurt feelings. Like I don't think he was there trying to hurt people or trying to like put them on the spot or make them look bad and stuff like that. And he did reel it in sometimes, you know, and he would tell a lot of these people like I'm not trying to pressure you, like I'm not trying to like insult you. He would tell his fans like to give him a chance to speak and stuff like that. Like he would do that. Um, you know, overall, I thought he was a gentle individual. He didn't raise his voice. He had extreme patience. He didn't curse. You know, I thought he was a gentle spirit, and I liked I kind of I liked that about him as well. Um, so I did the podcast last Wednesday, and I I did the podcast and I finished up and I was doing some other work, um, not to DHV spike myself or whatever, but I was working on some other stuff. I got a bing on my phone, and Charlie Kirk had been shot in the neck at Utah, and I was like, damn, that's terrible. Um, but for some reason, my initial reaction was that he was going to live, like he was going to be okay. Because that the only details that I heard was that he got shot in the neck. So I turned on the TV and I was flipping back and forth between Fox and CNN because that's usually what I do when they're both talking about like the same issue. Like I'll swing back and forth between the two stations, and so it was like 20 minutes had passed, and I'm thinking to myself like there hasn't been any reports from like the hospital. Like they're not outside the hospital reporting on this. Like usually if somebody is in critical condition, like all the reporters go to the hospital and they're giving you updates. I'm like, it's been 20, 30, 45 minutes and we haven't heard an update except for critical condition. I was like, I don't think he's gonna make it. You know what I mean? And then I saw one of the people on Fox. His guest was still talking, but I saw the look in his face. It looked like he got a notification, and um, I saw his reaction. I saw his reaction. I was like, "Fuck." About 10 seconds later, he announced it. Like, yeah, we just learned that the legendary Charlie Kirk has passed, and so that was shitty. You know, um, it's tough. I don't like when people die. I don't like when people disappear. Um, you know, if Al Sharpton passed, God forbid, for example, um, you know, I probably shouldn't even like put that out there in the universe, but like if if one of like the major like politicians on the left or something, like if something happened to them, like I'd be upset. I mean, um just anybody that you see in your algorithms, anybody that's famous, like any face that you know, and then like they're just disappeared from the world. It's like you'll still see them on YouTube and stuff like that, but it's just sad. It's just sad, you know, when people you're familiar with die. It's sad when anybody dies. You know what I mean? And I understand like I don't put that on God, and like I have, you know, justifications for why, like, ultimately in the grand scheme of things, it's okay, you know. I think I've said before, like if nobody died ever, then life wouldn't be precious as much. You know, it's the fact that it's uh limited that makes it precious, right? Or that contributes to it being precious and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, it's just a tough situation all around. To those who are celebrating the passing, um, I I do my best. I do my absolute best to be inclusive in my content, be inclusive in my mindset. I do my absolute best to see the human behind the idea. I've said in the past that some people can't be saved, but I like for, you know, as many people who can, like if you were like if you were happy about that, like just I don't know, I, I don't know, you're on that, you're you're dancing in that land of unredeemable. You know, if you're happy about an assassination, um, that's not, that's just not what we, that's not it. That's just not it. And and there are individuals out there that have absolute glee and no remorse for their glee, and they're just, some of them are trolls, you know, some of them are feel threatened by conservatism. Some of them are less than sane, but that is an evil. That is an evil, and I can. I don't want to say I can see or feel uh, demonic entities in certain facial expressions, but when the Wicked Witch of the West invites you in for an apple, and she has this look on her face that's that's supposed to be enticing, and it has like this little gleam underneath it, like this mischievous gleam, like come get the apple. We all know that that's a look of evil, and to celebrate somebody's death is the same, puts you in the same boat as far as I'm concerned. And so um if you're the type to feel that way, um I hope you do some serious soul searching, and I don't need your business, right? Um, but as far as as far as the shooter as far as the shooter is concerned, um we it, based on the suspect that we're looking at, um based on everything that we know, um I can't believe there was really a thing on this, like a debate on this, about whether he's a leftist or if he's conservative. And the of course the left wouldn't want to claim him, um just for optics sake, you know what I mean? um but they're not the ones on the far left. They're the ones that are gleaming with glee. It's funny, like, I saw a statistic the other day. It said about 40% of Americans aren't sure what side of the political spectrum um, the killer was on, and that's just indicative of today's political sphere. It's whatever side you're getting your news from is pointing to the other side as the liars and the imposters. And it reminds me of the standard trope that we see in cartoons and movies when there is an imposter and you're standing there, and this clone is pointing at the real individual, saying he's the clone, and the real one's like, no, he's the clone. And you're standing there and you're like, well, who's the clone? They're each saying that they're the authentic one and that the other person's the clone. And I can't I like to be balanced. I want to be balanced. I want to see things from both points of view, and a lot of these topics I can see things from both points of view, you know um which is why I don't agree with Charlie Kirk on everything, right? But with that being said, from where I stand, from what I've seen, and most of my evidence comes from 2020. It's just, from my point of view, it's unfortunately it's the left that engages in far more lying and and violence. Um, I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I was like, well, they were part of um the alphabet community, and we were just talking about the Charlie Kirk thing. I was like, well, who who do you think, if I told you there was a person, like a random person, and you knew nothing about them, all you knew is that they were a nihilist, which side of the political spectrum would you assume that they were on? And this person didn't answer. They said, well, let's do some Googling and stuff. And we kind of just dropped the conversation from there, just to kind of be polite and stuff like that. But I mean, the right side is the conservative side, the Republican side, they're by and large the side that believes in God, which means that they have a moral standard. Now, you might not agree with that moral standard, but on the left, it's like where does that moral standard come from? It doesn't come from anything. There's no issue. Lying isn't intrinsically wrong. Violence isn't intrinsically wrong. Nothing is intrinsically wrong on the left. It's all an expression of power. Um, because they're by and large godless, right? And so it's and I say by and large, and it's like I don't even think, like, honestly, I thought about this the other day. Like, the Democratic Party, the Democrats, they should disown the far left. Like, Antifa is still connected to the left. It's still connected to the Democratic Party. It's like the Democrats should disown. They should disavow violence, and they should disown the far left. Um, and so back to the shooter. Um, he we know he's based on all the conversations that he had on the internet, based on the communities that he was in, based on the servers that he was using, the people that he was talking to, the things that he was saying, Bella Ciao, notice his bulges, uwu. Like, we know what side of the spectrum of the political spectrum he was on, right? And he was a leftist. Like, he lived with somebody that was in the community. He lived with somebody who was trans, and he hated Charlie Kirk. Um, this is based off of everything the people around him are saying, and the left is trying to be like, oh, well, he grew up with conservative parents. He grew up in like a MAGA household and stuff like that, and it's like, yeah, all the more reason to assume that he was like that. Doesn't mean he grew up a righty. Like, um, that's a very, very common formula to create radical leftists. I was talking a few episodes ago in my episode about God, where, like, I know Satanists who became Satanists because they grew up in Jehovah Witness homes, and they grew up in a religious cult. So they became Satanists. And I think it's the same thing with this guy. He grew up in a strict right wing household, and it radicalized him the other way as a form of rebellion and stuff like that. You know, um, and that's that. To say he was on the right is just to murky the waters, and just to you know take blame off of your party and stuff like that, because you didn't get the response that you were looking for. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of the people on the left who went onto social media and celebrated the death were not expecting to get fired, because they could say anything they wanted in 2020, um and 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 beyond. They were getting used to a culture where if you're speaking on the left points, you could say anything you want, and that's fine. And I don't think they were expecting this type of reaction. Um, I mean, after the events first happened or whatever, like, I don't. I want to try not to put them all into like a single category. I want to try to continue to recognize individuality. Um, but there are core beliefs that the further you get into um, certain communities that you carry underneath um, with you, and I don't know. I mean, they're saying it was more than now they're saying that it was the killer didn't operate alone, and I kind of alluded to that when I was talking about um the different messagings that he did and stuff like that. It seems like he did have help from the proverbial alphabet mafia, as they're so endearingly referred to. It seemed like multiple accounts had foreknowledge that this was going to happen. Um, some even went so far as to mention the date. Um, and I don't know what you don't. And now it seems like the right are going to go after not only the killer but all the cells that are associated with um violent left, the Antifa type, and stuff like that, the militant arm of the left. And I don't know. I mean, that is to be expected. They assassinated somebody who was personally tight with every single person of power in the current administration. Like he was homies with like all the Republicans. Like they were all his boy. And they were all boys. And so like I would not be shocked. I'm already hearing, you know, through the grapevine, like not even the grapevine. I think this came from the president's mouth himself. I'm already hearing stuff about how they're gonna go after not just the shooter, but like I said, like different militant arm cells and stuff like that, stemming from the left. You know, um, as far as if we want to talk about um, some of the things that if we want to talk about like um his actual position on certain things. um Sorry y'all, I hit the stop button by accident. um and so I'm gonna pick up from where I was. I was talking about, some of his actual positions and stuff like that. And, some of the ones that I just wanted to point out, some of the ones that I agree with versus some of the ones that I didn't necessarily agree with. He he touched on gender identity, which I think is a topic that I've spoken on um, relatively in depth. I mean, my ultimate position is that um, people should be treated as people, um, and you know, people should be treated with basic respect and dignity. Um, I think a lot of confusion around gender identity um, stemmed from the separation of gender from biological sex. Um, I think there are those who um, push the the idea inorganically in our society. Um, I I don't mind. I don't. It doesn't bother me personally what people do to themselves, with others, as long as it's consensual. But that's the point. It's consent, and like there's just like I say with the left, there's a militant branch to the alphabet community. We call them the alphabet mafia. Um, there's a there's a Marxist undertone in the ideology that gives it that militant branch, and I don't like that. There are so many people who are in the community under the rainbow that literally just want peace like everybody else. They joined the community in the first place because they wanted peace. But they just don't get that because not because of the radical right. I think they don't get that because the radical left keeps speaking for them. But Charlie Kirk on gun control. I see a lot of people out there talking about how, Charlie said it was a necessary compromise to have some gun deaths to keep guns and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, he did say that. Um and he that was probably acceptable, was probably not the correct word to use. I think understandable might have been a better word to use, but who am I to correct somebody on his own thoughts? Um, I To me, I think the way I read the point was like, yeah, if you're gonna have automobiles on the road, you're gonna understand that there's gonna be some accidents. If you're gonna have kitchen knives in the kitchen, you're gonna have to understand that some people are gonna use them as murder tools. If you're gonna have any technology, there's gonna be risks associated, and it's not worth not having the technology because of the risks. And you can play with that idea circumstantially any way that you want and stuff like that. And I think ultimately the right and the left are coming from the same place when it comes to guns. At least the normal people are, the non-cynical. Like, the left doesn't want guns because the left is afraid to get shot, and the right is afraid to get shot. And the left believes that if you ban all the guns, then these mass shootings and small shootings and shootings in general would be, you can't shoot people if there's no guns, right? But the right believes like, yeah, if you ban guns, the bad people are still gonna get guns, and now we have no recourse, no chance of defending ourselves. Um, and so that's that. Um, as far as race is concerned, he was, against affirmative action and stuff like that. But I don't think his colorblind initiative made him a racist. Um, he did speak on George Floyd. I did not like the tone that he used when speaking about George Floyd. I don't think it was necessary to highlight the negatives that Floyd brought to the table. I don't think it was necessary to highlight the drugs, to highlight any of this stuff. He wants to make it so to seem as if it was the drugs that killed George. Um, but I mean, he's he doesn't put like he's defending Chauvin, like he's not putting any blame on Chauvin. You know what I mean? He's not putting any blame on the police. He's even like trying to justify like, oh, this was the tactics that they were taught to use, and Floyd was already in cardiac in a cardiac situation. He was already saying that he couldn't breathe, and it's like you don't put somebody face down on the ground and put weight on them when they already saying they can't breathe. The fact that he was saying he couldn't breathe should have been the cue to like not lay on him. You know what I'm saying? It's like you could be completely healthy, and I said this in my book, like you could be a completely healthy, like not on drugs, like whatever, young, whatever you want to be. And like being in the position that George Floyd was in is going to cause a little bit more respiratory distress. Like it's not so easy to like breathe while you're laying on your stomach and your hands are behind your back and you have weight on your neck, a knee on your neck, and stuff like that. And it was just like I didn't like his stance on that at all. Um, you know what I mean? I didn't like where he stood with that. Um, the character assassination. He thinks it was just some kind of overdose that sparked like a big thing, but it was like, no, it was a murder. Like, we watched the dude say he can't breathe for 15 minutes, and like, I don't know. That's another thing with Kirk. He says like empathy is BS and stuff like that. I don't think he meant it the way that it was interpreted, but like, this is one of those situations where you could see like where I would have asked for more empathy in regards to somebody's life. You know what I mean? Um, the idea he was accused of being anti-Semitic. As far as I know, he liked Israel. He supported Israel a lot, almost to a downfall. Almost to his own detriment. Like this, that's another thing that I talked about. Like in regards to Israel, like he was perfectly, he seemed to be okay with what was happening in Gaza. He was justifying what's currently happening in Gaza vis-a-vis October 7th, and October 7th was terrible, was a tragedy, and needs to be avenged. Um, and even if we know that Hamas is, I've said this before, even if we know that Hamas is hiding behind civilians, that does not give us impunity to just blow shit up. Or I say us, I meant to say them. Um, but in America, that's how intertwined we are with Israel. But no, there shouldn't. It doesn't justify. I don't think it justifies what's happening. I don't think. I think such an advanced. I think there were other ways. You tighten up your border security. You get more. You spend more money on internal intelligence and different agencies and stuff like that. And I mean, even Kirk questioned, like, why the hell did it take 6 hours for the Israeli army to respond? You know, why did it take 6 hours for them to do anything? But there's other ways to get revenge on Hamas. You don't have to just be stupid and just be like, oh, blow up everything, kaboom, take away their food, like talk about casualties of war and stuff like that. Like this is like, it's not just a casualty by accident. Like, these are casualties that could easily be avoided. You know what I mean? You send in ground forces, you do recon operations, you do targeted strikes. I mean, the right will say, hey, at least we're dropping pamphlets that tells people to like leave and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, at least there's that. But I don't want to see when we went to Iraq, like we didn't kill a bunch of children and like innocent people. Like, we went door to door, you know, and stuff like that, and we made sure like we weren't slaughtering civilians. So I'm not with what Israel's doing and stuff like that. As far as Islam is concerned, I think they're some of the most beautiful people in the world are Muslims. Um, but I also do have a concern that there seems to be an insistence on global adherence, right? And I'm not gonna say anything that could be, taken as any type of way, but I'm gonna let you guys deduce what that means, right? So, like I said, I know some of the most beautiful individuals in the world that come from Muslim faiths, but collectively, we can't say that the religion doesn't call for a global adherence, and they they have teamed the they have teamed with the left somehow, in not somehow, but like in the Marxist way, where they're you know linking themselves to the left because they're an oppressed group and the left harbors oppressed groups. And it's silly because like that's the only reason the left is harboring, you know, that ideology uh is because they're seen as oppressed and stuff like that. But you want to talk about like women's rights and stuff like that? That is completely, and I know I'm not the first to bring this up, but like it is, Islam is completely, if we think Islam is incompatible with the conservative way of life, not so much. It's way more incompatible with the left's way of life, um, in regards to like women and gays and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Um, I do not think the left would enjoy Sharia law. I just don't. Um, as far as free speech is concerned, this is the biggest thing that I agreed with Charlie Kirk on. This is probably, um, yeah, this is the thing. Like this is the issue. This is the reason that I even considered him like as somebody that I liked. Um, Aside from asserting basic dignity to everybody and the fact that he was an eloquent speaker and I liked his vibe, or his gentleness. But no, the fact that he was advocating for free speech, that's the main thing. And Christ. I mean, Christ is the main thing. But I don't see Christ on this list here. I'll circle back to that. But free speech, like, yeah, without it, you have nothing. Like um, I think free speech is as intrinsically valuable as truth is. I think it's one of those um moral, attributes that is necessary for a society. I think it's necessary for a society to evolve. I think it's necessary for healing. I think it's necessary for individuals to feel individualized. I think the only thing that beats bad ideas is good ideas. Um, and I'm not into like silencing opinions and stuff like that. For the most part, though, they're calling it hypocritical that conservatives are calling for firing individuals who are celebrating Kirk's death, but yet they still stand for like freedom of speech and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't want people who celebrate death to, make my coffee. But then the left can turn around and say the same thing. Like, I don't want a sexist or a homophobe or a racist to make my coffee. And then the right could turn around and say like, oh, well, you're just making up those words and stuff like that. So and then he spoke on climate change. He thought it was like a big hoax. And like I said, I don't have strong views on climate change. He spoke on Christ. He was a big proponent of Christ. And Christ is like my favorite character ever. And I like Christ. I like Christ a lot, and so I thought that was pretty cool. Um, but yeah, man, just to kind of let me see if I have anything else. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess to kind of, and let me see, do I want to add? Yeah, I don't know. I was gonna express my I'm getting more and more it's becoming harder and harder to believe how like we literally have like a party or a sect within a party, like that dude from New York, the mayoral candidate, and like AOC and stuff like that. Like we literally have like communism as like a votable like party, and I think that's wild. Like I don't know how that happened. That's so funny. It's like you have the freedom to like destroy your own freedom. Like it's so odd. Like you have the freedom to vote against your own freedom. You know what I mean? But I want to leave off with, you know, as positive of a message as I can leave off with, which is that most people, of a super vast majority of people are just trying to live and let live. A super vast majority of people are just trying to like live their lives and stuff like that. Um, we we can't. I still hold out for peace. You know what I mean? I still hold out for. I'm not. I want ideas to win. I want the good ideas to win. I want people to I want people to recognize like where the hatred is coming from, where the lies are coming from, most importantly. Um, I want a general awareness, but I want peace most and first and foremost, and I don't know exactly how we're gonna get there. Um, we I think it's important to continue to speak our minds, um, to not, no matter who you are, to not be to not let fear, control your opinions. Um, but we I don't know, guys. We gotta come together one way or another. I think the best way is to just remember that there are humans behind the ideas, and that most people are good. Most people are still good, and yeah, yeah. Um, I thank you guys for being here. I thank you guys for watching, and hopefully next episode we can speak on something a little bit less heavy. Um, I kind of I don't want to become like a political mouthpiece. Um, Politics intertwine with philosophy, and so I might have to, but um, I don't know. Um, I don't know. I'll be back next week, and we'll have another episode. Maybe, like I said, we'll do something a little bit lighter. But until then, take care of yourselves. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And rest in peace to Charlie Kirk. Goodbye.